Good morning, folks. It is January 2018. It is 8 degrees. I had a few questions about wire size on the previous generator video I did for my 22 Generac. So I wanted to show the wire sizes and let everybody know what the sizes were on them, at least as far as I can see from what's written or stamped on the wires. This is coming in from AEP. These wires are 4. They go into the top of the meter, and it's also 4 that comes out of the bottom of the meter, which go over into my transfer switch to the disconnect switch. This is actually considered a whole house disconnect. If I flip that down, it shuts power off to the entire house and will make the generator think that there was an outage and cause it to start. This yellow piece that's up, top feeds are from the power company. The bottom feeds are coming in from the generator, and that behind that red. This is in the up position, which means that power is being fed into the house from AEP or main power. In the event of an outage, that will switch down, which will take power from the generator and send it into the house. The white wire is a size 4. These two black hots coming in from my meter are size 4. It is a 6 gauge ground. And it appears that the wires coming in, these two black ones, are the hot wires, both legs coming in from the generator. They appear to be a 8 gauge. And then the smaller wires, these are communication wires. Those are 18 to 20 gauge wires. So those are the wire sizes. There is some sort of a diagram that's actually on the cover for the transfer switch, and it talks about sizes at 50 inches and 45 inches, and so that may be a reference tool. Generac's not really too forthcoming on exact wire sizes and stuff like that. They'll tell you to stick to your local code, because the local code will trump anything that Generac tells you it needs to be. So I do notice that some installs, I have one conduit that comes from my generator and all the wires are in the same conduit. That passed inspection. It depends on the insulation and the exact type of wire that you're using. If you're not using the right kind of wires, you will not be able to put them in the same conduit. As far as specifics on that, that's something that you might want to read up on, but the wires that they used, they were really specific. That way they could use one type of, or just one conduit, not have to run 2 separate ones. Some municipalities will tell you they want 2 separate ones regardless. So my first soapbox item, I want to jump on a couple of those. The first one is going to be the cold weather kit. When I had the generator installed in 2015, they put the cold weather kit in at install. That was $300, and they sell those kits for $279, which isn't any big deal. But as far as how it works, it hooks up to the control panel, which is behind this plate. There's a T1 and T2, and I'll go back to the transfer switch and show you a little bit more in detail. This is what they consider the crankcase. That's the oil filter. That is warm. This just, I can feel that through my gloves, it's so hot. This is a magnet. That's just going to help get any dirt, metal shavings out of the oil as it filters through. This will capture it in the bottom of the filter, which helps keep your oil a little bit cleaner. These are going to kick on automatically. I believe the thermostat is in here, and when the temperature drops below 32 degrees, it will kick these devices on. They're 240 volts. Again, it's about 8 to 10 degrees out here, so I'm going to take the temperature of this oil filter. There's a red dot on this. I'm not sure you can see it. Yeah, there's a red dot right there. That's the actual temperature where that dot's pointing. So that's 50 degrees, 17 degrees. Oil filter is 160, 180, 190. Down in here where the oil's sitting, 23. The battery, the bottom half of the battery, 60, 70, 67. The top half of the battery, 44. The metal side here, 22. So the kits do serve their purpose. My questions were, if the only thing that's actually heated is this, is it really enough to heat the engine so that when it starts, I would say it's decent enough. I mean, if you're in temperatures 10-12 degrees below zero, something's better than nothing as far as heating. You'll find some other YouTube clips out there where folks have did their own battery warmers, such as a wrap that goes around it, and then they install plugs over here and they put cubes on them where the cube will kick it on. They just plug right in. In order to do that, I have to run a 120 volt line from the house out here. This generator comes with an outlet in the side, but this only has power if the generator is running. If the generator is not running, there is no power to that outlet. So I would have to find a way to fish 3 lines through here to put me an outlet in there. Most of the folks don't like the battery heating pad. This is it's one of those rubber or resin. You're supposed to be able to cook with them, stick them in your oven. I actually bought that from Amazon. Turned my oven on in the house to 400 degrees and threw that in there for 20 minutes. It stunk pretty bad, but it didn't catch on fire. I don't think that, I think I set it on like 400 degrees or something. This will never get to 400 degrees, so it was likely it would never catch on fire. The issue is this pad that goes under the battery. It's just a flat pad that the battery sits on. Over time, sitting on that battery pad, just a vibration from the generator, the wires that's inside of this orange pad would touch the bottom of the generator, cause it to short out and blow the fuse and the transfer switch, which made the generator think there is no power, and it would cause the generator to start and transfer the generator power when you actually did have power. There was a couple of complaints on it, big time, where people were out of town. That happened. Some people were and their generator ran for so long that it blew itself up. It ran maybe, I think she said 5 days, 8 days straight or something, and it just went low on oil and was damaged, and Generac wouldn't pay for it, and a bunch of complaints. If you go to Generac's website and you look it up, you're not going to find a lot of people complaining on there. I mean, it's like if you write a bad review, they don't post it. I can't say that's 100%, but when you go on there, everything they have, from cold weather kits to the mobile link, which I'll talk about in a minute, all have like these raving 4.5, 5 stars. And not everybody feels that way. If you go to a separate site like Ziller Electric, Electric Generators Direct, Amazon. You'll get reviews on there that are a lot more critical than what you're seeing from Generac's website. That crankcase heater, which is the oil filter heater, that's going to run 40 watts at about 0.17 amps. Your battery pad is 50 watts at about 1/4 of an amp, and that kit's $275. I feel better now having this underneath, so it's not going to short out, blow my fuse, and have the generator run. I could be wrong, but I'm thinking it runs to the T1 or the T2 fuse back into the panel where these fuses are. It might be the N1 or the N2 that you see in there. Yeah, they're the only ones with fuses. If that touches metal, it'll back and it'll pop one of those fuses in there, and that's the same fuse that tells the generator that there is power coming in from the main company, from the power source, your main power source. If that fuse blows, it's the same fuse that runs the cold weather kits that will tell it to turn on because it thinks it's lost power. So I've read some stories, people were sitting in their house, generator turned on, power transferred, no idea why. Found out that fuse was blown, changed the fuse, it was fine. Some changed the fuse, kept popping instantly because of that pad. Some people said their batteries have exploded because those pads have gotten too hot. The batteries have gotten too hot and just exploded. Which is pretty scary because right behind the battery, that's your fuel source right there, where your propane comes in. So you definitely don't want anything blowing up in there if you can prevent it. I haven't had any issues. I haven't read too many, and some of the best dealers that are out there, Generac dealers, they have a forum on Ziller Electric's website, and they're knowledgeable. Those guys know what they're doing. They're out in the field, they're working, they're tearing things down, they see things, they tell Generac. And I just don't think Generac listens enough, to tell you the truth. I would take advice from that web page before I would Generac, because they're not the ones installing hundreds and hundreds of these like those dealers are. That's on the job, live experience. They know what they're talking about. When you put this cold weather kit in, you're supposed to have 5W30 synthetic. When you buy the generator, I'm not sure exactly what's in it, but when you buy them brand new, there is like beginning fluid, new fluid. There's a lot of additional additives in the oil to help it, break in a little bit better, to make sure the seals seal up right so that you're not leaking oil down the road. Some people drain it, put in the 5W30, put the kit on it. When they installed mine, they told me to leave that oil in there for the first year, 6 months if I felt bad about it, but they recommended I leave that oil that came with it from the factory, and it was filled fully. You didn't have to top it off or add anything. So cold weather kit, that's about it for that. The next I want to talk about some Mobile Link. That is this black box here with the antenna on it. You'll see, what do we got here? 3 blue LEDs on there. Not exactly sure what they stand for, but one means you got power, one means that you have communication, something like that. So when they installed this, I did not have the Mobile Link unit added to it when I had it installed. I'd read some stuff. Some people were happy, some people weren't happy. It's pretty much a dud. I mean, what the customer wants today is what you want to give the customer. Generac, I don't think, fills that challenge at all. And what I mean by that is, all you get from that is push notifications. It sends you push notifications that the generator's running from exercise mode, it's back in standby, you've lost power, your generator's running, change your oil, check your battery. That's all it does. It only talks to your phone, but your phone cannot talk to it. So in some areas, in certain conditions, you may want to start your generator from your phone and let it run for a half hour, 40 minutes. You should be able to do that. My truck, I can start from anywhere in the world, from any device. It'll tell me the temperature of the engine, the temperature inside the truck. It'll tell me if the doors are open, the windows are down, and I can look at a history in there. I can start the truck, I can shut the truck off. I can have that truck do everything except make a pot of coffee and pull up to the door for me. But with Generac, you can't do that with these. There's no technology available to do that. And for the cost of the Mobile Link, I had them install it October of 2016. So I used it for a good year. They did a service and installed the Mobile Link, and that was $524. The Mobile Link was $279, and that included the first year of service. So I got to reading up on it, and it was a couple of weeks before I made the decision to actually spend that kind of money. $279 includes your first year of service, and then it says that your first year is free. So that would tell me that I had 2 years of service. When you buy it, in that $279, that's the price of the Mobile Link and your first year of service. But if I have the first year of service free, that to me means I have 2 years before they should charge my account again. And it's not, it's only a year. So that didn't make any sense. That just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, on top of the fact that I can't check the temperature. This device does not tell me how many watts I'm running. It doesn't tell me the temperature of it. It doesn't tell me any of the facts I'd like to know. The oil pressure, it doesn't tell me any of that. So you're basically paying that kind of money for the same thing that this light does. You're going to get very few messages from your generator. Change your oil, check your battery, check your spark plugs, change your air filter, and if something fails, that light won't be green, it'll be red. If it's yellow, that's usually something telling you need some maintenance done. It's time to check those things. It's time to change your oil. I don't think paying $100 a year for that Mobile Link, so on top of $279, if you install it yourself, plus whatever labor to install it, you're going to pay $100 a year to keep in communications. I just didn't think that was worth it, so I didn't pay it anymore. And it doesn't work, and I'm fine. If I need to know if it's in good shape, look right out that window, and it's going to tell me green light, yellow light, red light. I originally wanted to install it up here behind the shed, so if that was the case, it might be worth paying that to have that annual communication, but I just don't think that it is. It kind of sours me that Generac doesn't listen. And when you ask them, why don't you have the function to be able to start the generator, they'll tell you it's unnecessary wear and tear, you don't need to do that. Okay, well, as a consumer, as a customer, I'll decide whether or not it's worth the wear and tear. Another example to match that and try to pair that with whatever thought they're thinking versus what the customer thinks. You pull up to the train tracks and there's a train. How many people stop, keep their foot on the brake, vehicle in drive, and wait for the train to pass? I've seen people do it for a half an hour to 40 minutes. That's a waste. That's wear and tear on your car. Put it in park, shut it off. If it's not freezing and it's not 110 degrees outside, shut it off, wait for the train, start up and go. You're wasting fuel. Ford doesn't say we're going to have it automatically shut off. If you sit with your foot on the brake longer than 10 minutes, it'll automatically shut off. They give you an option to make that choice, where Generac doesn't. They just tell you, no, we don't have that function because of this. It doesn't matter. If the consumer wants it, you need to do it. You put 100 people in a room, and if I'm standing in there as a CEO of Generac or any other company, and I say, show of hands, how many people would like to have the option to start their generator from their cell phone? And if more than 70% of the hands in that room go up, I'm going to turn to my research and development team and say, guys, make this happen. This is what the customer wants. I don't understand why there's not a lot of people that don't make aftermarket parts, unless I'm not looking in the right place or I'm missing it. But like wipers, you can go to the dealership and buy wipers for any vehicle, but you can also go to a host of other manufacturers and buy wipers. Is there any other place that makes these type of things for a generator? Most people want something where they can hook it up to a gateway and it'll tell them whether or not the generator is running. Right now, it sort of has to be Mobile Link through that whole process because there's nothing else that's available. There's nothing aftermarket. There are a few people that had designed some things and made some things, but I mean, they're really sophisticated. They're not a plug and play by any means. They put a lot of thought into it to make it work. The only other way, other than currently with Mobile Link, that I can think of to get notification that my generator is running due to a power outage, is if you have something like ADT Pulse. Some of the alarm companies, you can turn your lights on in your house from anywhere in the world, wherever you have cell phone signal. You can open your garage door, you can unlock your front door, you can do all kinds of stuff. You can turn your temperature on your furnace, turn the air conditioner up. Generac can't do none of that. But Generac, all you can be told is yes, it's running, yes, it's off, check your oil, and all that stuff that I think is just too little at this time. This day and age, people want more than that. So I'd like to see somebody design something where we can do that. That's a huge, huge soapbox for me to be on, because there just needs to be more than that available for this type of equipment. Let's see. Propane use, a couple questions about propane use. In April 2018, it will be 3 years that I've had this generator installed. And part of the annual maintenance that I like to do is to keep an eye on my propane. This is my gas line, comes in from underground. And this is my second stage regulator. I like to check the pipe out, see if there's any rusting, see if there's any splits. Do I smell any propane? There was snow up to about here, so I usually try to come out and keep the snow off these gas lines and from around the generator, so it's not sucking any snow up in there and causing it to shut down if it needs to turn on. But as far as the propane usage goes, 500-gallon tank. When they installed the tank, I had some pumped over from the previous smaller tank I had, and I ordered more. I'm at 75% right now. When they filled this, it was 85%. The only reason this is 75% is because it's so cold. It's about 10 degrees. In the summertime, when it's 80, 90 out here, that'll push itself up to about 80. So I've only used maybe 5 to 7% in 3 years. The runtime on the generator is 5 minutes at 52 weeks a year. That's 260 hours a year. We're going to divide that by 3 years, or times that by 3 years. That's 780 hours. Divide that by 24 hours in a day. That's the equivalent of this generator running 32 days out of a year. Now that would be without any load on the generator. With load on the generator, it really depends on how much fuel you would consume. We have maybe 5 to 8 hours of outage runtime on here, Again, that's not something that you're able to use your app to look at and see. That's actual outage from where we lost power and it turned on and did what it was supposed to do, and then after main power was restored, it went back to sleep. The rest of that would be either time that I have created the outage or just runtime with no load. I think it's good to run your generator with some sort of load on it at least once a year, but I like to do twice. I like to run the air conditioner on it for an hour and the heat pump for about an hour. So usually I'll do about an hour in November and then an hour in May or June, and just let it run and do what it's supposed to, just to make sure it's good to go. I've done a lot of reading and research, and I've read stories where people have ran their generators for an extra 2 hours a month, and when they needed it, there was no electricity coming out of it because they haven't actually put a load on it in so many years that when it needed to, it failed. The engine run, but it didn't put out any load. That kind of cycles me back to Generac not listening to the customer. There's a lot of features on these generators that I think the customer should be completely in charge to be able to do. The runtime is 5 minutes. And when you're in climates like this, 10 degrees outside, 5 minutes is not enough time for that engine to kick on, get up to the operating temperature that it should be, and stay there long enough to burn off condensation that will build up inside your oil, which is water. And one of the biggest factors of evidence that that's happening, take this cap off, and you can see the white milky substance that tells you you've got water condensation in your oil. And Generac, for whatever reason, will not change the runtime. This is a 22 kW I had installed in 2015. Before this unit, I had a 14 kW I had installed in 2012. Never had that problem because the runtime on it was 12 minutes, not 5. Generac cut it back to 5 for multiple reasons. One, some ordinances was complaining about the runtime every week. It's too loud. Oh, it's a waste of fuel if it runs any longer. It only needs 5 minutes. Listen to your customers. Listen to your dealers. Most dealers will tell you 5 minutes is not enough runtime. So what most folks will do, the only thing I think the customer can do is go in and change it to make it do an exercise for 5 minutes. You cannot change the 5 minutes. A dealer cannot change the 5 minutes. To switch it from weekly to bi-weekly or monthly so that it kicks on once a month instead of once a week. I would personally prefer mine run once a week, but I don't want to come out and switch it to manual and just to let it run long enough to burn the condensation off. So one way around it, some folks have switched theirs to run once a month, and then that once a month, while it's running under exercise, they come out and hit the manual button and let it stay running for an additional 30 minutes to make sure that it gets up to the proper temperature and that it stays there. Should be a minimum of 30 to 40 minutes minimum to make sure that that condensation gets burned off of there. So Generac will tell you every 2 years or 200 hours change your oil. I change mine every year because of that reason, the water that builds up in there. This is a note that tells you how to properly shut the generator down. This rag is for when I check the oil. This will tell you how to shut it down in the event of a power outage, because you should shut it down every 24 hours according to Generac, and check the oil. Even though you have a low oil shutoff, don't depend on that. It's not worth blowing up the engine, especially if you're running heavy loads on your generator like this one may be. My biggest concern right now at this point, it's 10 degrees outside. The last time this generator kicked on and ran, it was, I think, 7 or 12 below, and a transformer blew behind me. way down there in that corner. I could actually see the flash and wonder what it was, because there's no cars, there's no roads back here. Saw the flash, and then within 3 to 4 seconds the power went out. Generator started up. Within 5 seconds the generator started. 5 seconds it transferred, power was back on, and within 2 seconds the massive 15,000 watts from my electric furnace dumped onto the generator. And it took it, but you could hear that it bogged it a little bit, because this thing was sitting out here, you know, 10 below zero for hours, and then you just dump a 15,000 to a 20,000 watt load on it. That's a lot. So I would like to be able to go in at my discretion and have it start up, run for 3 minutes, transfer over, and then take whatever load you put on it. The idea that it's freezing out here and this thing starts up and it runs full blast and then transfers over, that to me is pretty scary. Now the heat pump, if I'm running the heat pump, which is back there, a 3-ton heat pump, it has a lockout. So if it's heat pump or air conditioner, it will lock itself out for 3 minutes. That's built into the heat pump. So the power would go off in the middle of summer, or when I'm able to run the heat pump when it's 30 degrees or above. Power goes out, 5 seconds, generator starts, 5 seconds, it transfers over to generator power. 3 minutes after that, then the air conditioner or the heat pump would kick on. That 3 minutes is plenty of a warm-up time. But when I switch over to emergency heat and I run the heat coils in my furnace, I don't get that lockout time. If it's set for emergency heat, I mean, almost as soon as power is restored, that furnace will kick right back on. There are lockout modules on the hot water tank, the stove, and the dryer. Of course, if the power goes off, your stove, if you're using the top burners, they will come right back on because they're analog, they're dials. The actual ovens, you would actually have to turn them back on because they're digital. The dryer, you would have to turn back on. The hot water tank will immediately come back on. So when you figure all those factors, am I comfortable maybe if we get down to 15 below zero and the power goes off? Is this generator going to be able to take 15,000 watts from the furnace and 5,000 watts from the hot water tank? Dump 20,000 watts on it when it's been sitting here froze solid for the last 4, 5, 6 days, and temperatures like that? I don't know. Generac says yes, because that's what it's designed to do. I doubt that, because they also say that the 5-minute runtime is fine, and we see that it's not, because it's not running long enough to burn that water condensation off of there. So part of my maintenance that I do is I want to check and make sure that I don't have any gas leaks. I mean, the generator itself does not burn that much fuel. This unit here particularly is a lot more efficient than the 2014. The 2014 I had would actually use more fuel than this 22 would. So we're good to go here. I just like to go around and make sure I'm not picking up any gas. That little beep and the flashing green light means that it's not picking up any gas. Go around your regulators. Go back in here where your fuel pod and stuff is, and there's a regulator here built into the generator also. That's good. Go to the line that comes out of the ground, kind of follow it up. It's all good. Soapbox of activities, and I'll clear the stuff off of here and I'll do a start. and I'll let it run for a few minutes. I let it run yesterday with the cold weather kit. I don't have any doubts that it wouldn't start in cold weather. I mean, for folks that live in ridiculously cold climates, I can see where they would agree at some extent that they would like to be able to start their generator also whenever they felt they needed to without having to manually go outside. There was also a few comments on about how loud it was, and it's not terribly loud. I'm at the back corner of my property, and this is what it sounds like. Again, some homeowners associations will tell you that that's just way too loud. I believe it's 62 decibels at, was it 35 feet, something like that. It's in the specs. Some of the idea to put it behind the shed. Was to dampen the noise down, but it really isn't too bad. Probably 75, 80 feet. Now, if noise is a problem, they do have quiet source generators available from Generac, but they're only available in liquid cold, which are almost twice the cost for installation of an air cold unit. So if you have a huge property, you have enough room and noise is a factor, just put it further away from your house. If you're within a homeowners association or a certain city ordinance, and you have to maintain a certain amount of quietness or noise level, that may be your only other option. Smaller generators, the little portable generators, are even louder than this, and they're only going to cover a certain amount, not your entire house in most cases. that's maybe a good 5 minutes, a little bit more of the standard exercise time you're gonna get. So if I retake the temperature down here, we're only up to 81 degrees, 77. Oil filter crankcase 99, 103. That is up to 60 degrees. 72. You know, I'm pretty sure the oil in there is probably warmer than that, but it's definitely not, you know, 200 and some degrees where it should be to burn that stuff, burn that condensation off of there. And that's milky, but it's now oil mixed milky. So this is why you should change your oil annually, and why Generac needs to start listening to their dealers and their customers a little better. Thanks for watching. Leave any comments below. Subscribe if you want to.